Hey, lovely one. I'm so happy that you are here and that we get to have this conversation.
I know, me too. I feel like it's been forever since we last spoke.
I know, I feel like I've been saying that with everybody, and all the podcasts that I've put out first are all my friends. And I feel like anyone listening is going to be like, does she know everyone? I'm like, no, I just know a lot of people I haven't spoken to for ages because I've been in the online world for such a long time. And I'm like, oh, I want to speak to you and I want to speak to you.
I mean, it's a gift that you know so many interesting people.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And you are one of them. You're one of my favorite people online and offline. And we've had quite an interesting relationship, because you worked for me at one point. You have got a very successful, my definition of successful business these days. We've been to Spain together before I lived there. We've done all sorts of things.
Yeah, in fact, I remember when we took that trip to Spain and you were driving us from the airport and you were like, I would really love to live here, but I cannot drive around Spain.
Uh-huh.
And then look what happened.
Well, and for the audience at home, I did drive us into a field in the middle of the night.
It's the best time to drive into a field.
That is true. That is true. And it was really towards the end of our trip. But I was terrified. And yeah, I do a lot of things that terrify me. How things have evolved. I'm curious, what is sacrosanct in your life currently?
It's funny, I feel like recently that is really shifting for me. Because for the longest time it was like business. My business was my everything.
Yeah.
And now it just seems like it's everything else. And particularly my like alone time, my like spiritual practices, even like my garden. Like I've become like a little old lady out there with my gardening gloves and my watering can, and I'm loving every second of it. And I think really having that time just for myself in like the first portion of the day, that's what's most sacrosanct, because I feel like that's what keeps me sane, to be quite frank.
Yeah. And for me, like that's the whole purpose of getting to know for yourself what is sacrosanct, because then if you do it, then you are a sane human and then you can deal with everything else.
Yes.
Well, because I don't see life getting any easier. Right? Like we've had a weird couple of years and I don't think that anything's changed really. I think it's just more visible now, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree. Like I know that everyone, I keep hearing things like, oh, like XYZ is over now, or like, oh, we made it through. And I'm just like, did we? Did we actually?
Yeah, I mean that's the hardest part, right? Like there's a lot of and I feel like this shows up in the personal development space and in the areas that we work in. Most of our work is actually making visible what's invisible. It's not that it wasn't there before. I don't know whether you were working for me then. I once had a client or a prospect or like someone who was interested in working with me say to me, I'm really interested in working with you one-on-one, but I'm terrified I'm going to not end up with a husband and I really love my husband. And I was
I remember them.
and I was like, well, if you really love your husband, why would you not end up with your husband? Like, what do you think I'm gonna do that's gonna make something that isn't there appear? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like that's just an example of how people try to hide from the truth that they already know.
Tell me more about that. Give me an example.
Well, I mean, if somebody's saying, like, I love my husband and I'm worried that working with you will make me dump him, then chances are it's because they know that there's a problem in that relationship. And they just know that if they work with someone who goes deep with them, they're going to have to face those truths.
Yeah. And my other favorite is I want to work with you on my business, but let's not talk about my personal life or this or that or the other thing. And I'm like, why me then? There are hundreds of other coaches and people out in the and like facilitators, strategists, guides that you can go work with who won't ask you one single question about your personal life. I'm going to look under that rock first. So I don't understand this conversation.
I feel like that's literally like saying, I want to work with you on my business, but I don't want it to work.
I want something in my life to change, but I don't want to change anything.
Right.
And let's be fair, I feel that way about weight loss. I would like my body to change, but I don't want to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the last kind of coach, personal trainer person I worked with did exactly what that, like I had some bandwidth, some willpower, something. I went, and it's not like I don't know what to do. Of course I know what to do, right? Like I've studied all the things, done all the things, also lived a long time. So I did all the things that she told me for a period of time. And then I was like, can't do this anymore. And she was like, well, if you don't do what I tell you, then nothing's going to change. I'm like, I know, but I'm not going to. So should we just end this relationship? And she basically just went, well, you're signed up to a contract. And I was like, but it's not working for me, and I'm not going to do like, and then rather than navigating that conversation and being like, well, how can we make it work? Or maybe you just need a month's break or something, she just disappeared and then continued to try and take money. And then when I messaged and said, I've paid one more month because I think it's really fair that I give you a month's notice, but I actually don't think I signed a contract at any point saying that I would stay for a certain amount of time. So if you can show me the contract that I signed where I said that I would stay for 4 months and that I still owe you money, then I'll absolutely honor that. And that brings up some interesting things for me in business, because I know you are someone who likes a contract. Can I say that about you? You like things to be like, you like to know what they are and what they're not. Yes or no?
Yeah, I think I like to know what to expect.
Yeah, okay. And that's what contracts do, right? Like they give us what to expect. And then I don't like and I think we're taught sometimes to be more and hard boundary than is necessary, of like, you sign this contract so you have to. And I think in feminine business particularly, there's a way of going, okay, well, you signed this contract and that was your intention and now it's not working, so let's have a conversation about it, rather than, I don't know, does this make sense to you of what I'm kind of getting at?
Totally. And while yes, like I do appreciate knowing what's coming, just because I do feel like that in a lot of instances makes it easier to avoid any miscommunication and conflict that can come up.
Yeah.
If at any point someone's working with me and they're like, this just isn't the right fit, like it's just not doing it for me, or like this has happened in my life and I can't carry on with it, I would never be like, no, you have signed a contract and therefore I own you until it's up. Because yes, I might be getting more payments, but in exchange for what? I'm going to get a headache out of it. I'm going to get bad feeling out of it. I'm going to get resentment. I'm not going to help the client get results. So how is that actually helping?
And I totally 100% agree. And I have to hold my hands up and say, you know what, there's been a time in my life and in my business where I really held people to contracts. And because I go deep with people, because I go look for the, like I've described myself once as an emotional splinter extractor. Like if there is something that is not working, if there is some kind of inflammation in your system, which in that could be physical, it could be energetic, emotional, and like in any of your energy bodies, I will find it, right? That's what I do. And not in a vicious kind of a way, but I'm a catalyst and an amplifier, and it will always be found. And it makes people uncomfortable. And when they're uncomfortable, they say, I don't want to do this anymore. It's uncomfortable, right? And so we have to have a contract because we have to have commitment, and I have to be able to say, no, you said you wanted to do this, you're going to stay. And so for me, finding that line between me being kind of hard ass and being like, you said you wanted to do this, you're staying, versus of course you want to leave and go then, and that not feeling like it's doing any service. PS, I've also got a business to run, and every time you come in, like I need to have, does this make sense? Like I need some structure, and I need to know
it does. But I feel like a lot of that comes down to how much we trust ourselves, because how much do we trust ourselves to know the difference? Like when you have a client who wants out, is it because you've like poked at something and they're like, oh my God, don't look at that, don't make me look at that, and trying to do a runner? Or is it because like truthfully, like they are trying everything you suggest, they are trying to work the system, and it's just not getting them results, because those two things are very different.
They are. And I feel like because I work in a way that's actually quite personalized, and for a little while, in terms of growing my business and wanting to scale and have impact, I was trying to unify and automate and like just make things the same, right? And also, as someone who is neurodiverse and has an absolutely terrible memory, if I'm working with a whole bunch of different people, I can't remember what's in your contract versus what's in your contract, and what we agreed was what we agreed. I literally have to go and look every time. I'm like, what did we say? And so that I also need that. And it really helps me if there's some continuity and some consistency, and like we always do this or we always do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And there have been a couple of times in my business where, and let's bear in mind I've been in business quite a long time, in the kind of, I don't know, I'm 42 and I've been in business doing this since like coaching rather than doing TV or doing anything else since 2014. And I've had two people in that time where it hasn't worked out and we haven't been able to make an agreement that worked for everybody. Like, they haven't been happy, I haven't been happy, kind of thing. And that was because of exactly what we're talking about. Them saying, I've done everything that you've asked me to do and it's not working for me. And me saying, no, you haven't. You're not actually taking on board anything I'm saying. And these days, if we reach that place, I would step away and I would say, okay, cool. Listen, it's not working. You don't want to go there. I'm not willing to be your mum and push. But there was a time in my business where I was so attached to people's results and I made it personal, and somewhere I needed them to get the results, and I needed to, it impacted my self-esteem, my sense of self, all of those kind of things, how they were doing. And I think one of the biggest pieces of work that I've ever done is separating myself from my clients' results and being like, if this doesn't work for you, that it doesn't work for you, but that doesn't actually say anything about me. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, you know, I can relate to that one. I mean, for the longest time, becoming indispensable to people was like my mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I got all of my validation, all of my worthiness, and, you know, toxic trait alert. Thankfully, something that I've let go of significantly now, but I think it's relatable for a lot of people.
Well, and it's and in honesty, it's codependence. Like, in honesty, it's like, oh, this is how I grew up. How I got love was to be needed, and so I'm going to make myself needed so that I'm loved. And then learning to separate that from money, like there's so much in there. And it's, you know, I feel really confident and competent at helping other people unmesh those pieces now. And should I have not been coaching while I was doing that? You know, it's a nice thing to say in hindsight, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And we're always doing the best that we can with the information that we've got. And so rather than going back and shaming myself for the way that I handled things in the past, I kind of have to trust that we get the right people at the right time to teach us the right lessons, and that their sovereignty is their sovereignty and their agency, right? And that and one of the things I'm really interested in right now is helping people understand, like, really check their motivation for signing up with a coach or a facilitator or a strategist. Like, are you coming because you want to be saved? And because what we're really talking about is that you and I were in a drama triangle being a rescuer, right? Where we then became the perpetrator because of the drama triangle and the dynamics involved in that. And so stepping out of rescuing and becoming a coach instead, and really being like, I can mirror what's going on for you and I can share and I can see, but I'm not here to rescue you, is the thing that I think has shifted it.
Yeah. And I agree with you that there is a lesson in everything. And I think no matter which side of it you're on, whether you're the coach that maybe like somewhat regrets how you were in the past, or you're the client who had that interaction, I think no matter how the experience went, it might not be the thing you thought you were going to learn, but there'll always be something that you can take away.
Fully. I have worked with many, many people. There was a coach who I worked with for a couple of years who is fierce at boundaries. And at the time, I needed to learn how to be more boundaried. And in some ways, I kind of emulated what she had done. And I didn't like the feeling of it at the time, but I felt like I needed it. And it was kind of good medicine for me. And then I definitely, for a period of time, had that rigidity with my boundaries. And then at some point I was like, oh God, it's too much. I don't need to be like that. That's not who I am. It's who she is, but it's not who I am. And I think I've had lots of experiences also where I've signed up for something thinking I'm going to get something and then not got that at all. And sometimes it's taken me a couple of years to see what I did get.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that one too.
You said it shifted. You said that for a long time your business was sacrosanct, right, in terms of how you spend your time and investing your energy, and you also said that was toxic or codependent in some way. What changed, or when did it change?
Well, I don't know if I can put my finger on exactly when it changed, but I can tell you what changed. So I had this moment where I was probably journaling, because that's where most of my like genius moments come from. But I had this moment where I realized that I was pushing so hard. I was doing all of the things. I was spinning all of the plates, and not a single one of them was actually working for me. So even though I was literally doing everything, and I could reel off like 25 different things that I was doing to try and make my business work at any one time, not a single one was getting me any results. And I was just like, fuck this shit. It's consuming my entire life, my like every ounce of energy that I've got, every waking thought, most of my sleeping thoughts, to be honest. And I'm not getting what I want. And if I was getting what I wanted from that behavior, then it would probably be a different story. But I was just like, what? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I bothering if it's not even going to get me what I want? So I just started stripping things away.
And I love that. And I love that realization. And I feel like it's a really important realization. And I read actually someone today who was like a Instagram coach or something, or like visibility coach. And she's like, stop copying what big accounts are doing, thinking that it's working. You've got no idea what they did to get there, and it probably won't work for you, right? And I think there's this thing of, when we don't know what we don't know, we copy anyone who seems to have the kind of success that we want, without getting really clear, first of all, on like what they actually did to get there, whether they're similar to us in makeup, whether it will work for us, and whether we actually want the same things. I think people are in such a hurry to take action and to feel like they're doing something, that they don't spend time getting really clear on what it is that they want and who they are. And
also what they like. Because I do not subscribe to this school of business where you have to force yourself to do things that you don't like. Like, I don't agree with that.
Well, a value filter, right? So for me, it's like, there are things in my business that I have to do that I don't like. I don't like bookkeeping. I don't like keeping accounts. I don't like that I have to pay tax. Like, I don't like any of those things. I'm never going to like them. But do I like the result of having done them? Yeah, I like knowing how much money I'm allowed to spend on me, or on stuff, right? I like knowing that the tax man's not going to come and knock on my door and take shit away, right? So if I like the result of having done it, but I don't like doing it, then for me, it's a yes, but I need to outsource it. So that's how I use the value filter.
I mean, I think like with those, it's slightly different from what I meant, because those are like the very like structural pieces of, this is just how society works.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to things like what kind of marketing you're going to do, what kind of like offers you're going to put together.
Yeah.
When it comes to that side of things, I'm like, why are we doing things we don't like? Make it make sense.
Oh yeah. I fully 100% agree with that. And I think the issue there is that people don't really know what's available to them and aren't trusting themselves, aren't coming into their, like, aren't allowing themselves to be enough. And like what they, because again, we're valuing, because of patriarchy, capitalism, etc., valuing what we do over who we are.
Yeah.
90% of my clients come to me not because of what I do. They have no idea what I do. They come to me because of who I am, right?
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And for some people listening to this, people will come to you for what you can do, particularly if you're marketing what you can do. But like, because society has said who you be is not enough, then we start thinking that we're only valuable and useful. We're only valuable if we're useful. And that's a lot of people's biggest wound. So they're just trying to be useful all the time.
Yeah. I can relate. I just feel like I'm nodding along saying like, yeah, I get that today. But I really do get that.
Good. And I know. And I think that's why we're talking about it, because I think more people, I also think the other part of that is me and you can both sit here and say, it's not about what you do, it's about who you are. Don't worry, like, especially if you're doing all the things and none of them are working, like, give yourself a break and slow down and like focus on what you love. And no one's going to listen to that, because you kind of, it's like you have to run next to a swimming pool in order to learn that you're going to slip over and hurt yourself, and that you probably shouldn't run next to a swimming pool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember so many times when people have told me like, you just need a break, you just need some downtime, and I've been like, are you freaking kidding me? You think I can take downtime? Is that a joke? And until it's forced to happen, it doesn't. I mean, earlier this year I'd got back into that cycle again, and I came down with COVID, developed long COVID, so it had me down for a month. Then the day that all my symptoms cleared up, I injured my ankle and couldn't walk for another month. So it's like I had to be forced to sit down and not do anything.
And I really believe that the universe is whispering to you all the time. And if you're not listening, it will talk. And if you're not listening, it will shout. And if you're not listening, it was going to trip you over and ground you, right? And just be like, are you listening now? Are you listening now? And you've heard me say this from when you worked with me. I used to say all the time, and I still say it, and it irritates people, you can be right or you can be happy. And how many times have both of us gone, but I want both? And for me, it's like, however long you spend in the place of I want both is how long it's going to take before you actually make the shift and realize that you're what my mum would call being pig-headed.
I love that, right or happy. I feel like I use that every time I have an argument with someone. I'm like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Well, yeah. And I like the part of that is that it's not, most of the time when we're having those fights, particularly when it's in relationship, do we want to win or do we want to move through this to understanding one another, to the next place? And most of the time, if you're having that kind of argument, it isn't about winning, it's about listening, feeling understood, right? But we can get so caught up in I want to be right rather than I want to feel like we've both understood each other, or we're moving forward in some way. And that's really what this is about. It's like you can stay in prove energy where you're like, I'm working really hard, see how hard I'm working. Or you can like step back and be like, okay, what does success actually mean to me? And does it mean, and like, if success means hanging out in my garden, going swimming in the sea, like having a nice chilled easy life, having leisurely mornings, how exactly is the strategy of getting up at 6 a.m. and doing 2 hours work before you've had a cup of coffee and breakfast ever going to get you the result that you want.
Well, it's not.
Yes, but if you told either of us that at the time,
I would have probably been like, well, I'm just going to try it.
yeah.
Which was my very polite way of saying, shut up, not listening.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad things have shifted and that there's more ease. And so has your definition of success changed?
I don't think my definition of success has changed, but I think my feelings about success have changed, because I think before, success felt like it was in the future. It was something that was guiding me. It was something I was focused on. Whereas now I do see the success in the everyday moments, because that's always what I wanted anyway. Like, I've never wanted the laptop lifestyle. I've never wanted to be a millionaire. Like, that's just not something that drives me. I want to like live like a hermit in my little house with my little garden and my not so little dogs, and just feel content. I want to be able to buy a book when I want a new book. I want to be able to buy nice crystals. Like, that's sort of the level of abundance we're talking about here. And so now when I do have a day where I can sit in my garden with a book, or I do have a day where I'm like polishing a new crystal, I feel that sensation of success.
Well, that makes me very happy. And I'm interested then, because the other kind of personal development adage, right, is that you've always got to want more, right? And so if you've got the little house and the hermit lifestyle, and you can buy the books that you want, and you can polish a crystal, and you can hang out with your big dogs, what's next? And how do you stop yourself from getting stagnant?
So I think what helps is that I am extremely creative in all kinds of different ways. And I've really learned to like receive inspiration and do something with it. Not just like think, oh, that'd be a good idea. I might do it in 6 months when I actually have time to breathe. Like, if I get inspired, I will just do the thing. Like, if I want to plant a herb garden, I'll plant a herb garden. If I want to do a painting, I'll do a painting. If I want to put together a new like mastermind structure, I'll do that, whatever it is that I'm inspired to do. And I think because I've always now got that creative action happening, I don't feel stuck. I don't feel like I'm not moving. And you can always buy more crystals.
What's your human design? Are you a manifesting generator or a generator?
Neither. I'm a manifester.
Manifester. Oh, did I not know that about you? That's really interesting. And it's really interesting because you've been working hard for your whole life, which is so out of strategy for you.
100%. Like, honestly, when I first got into human design and I started reading into that, it was like a tick list of all of the like wrong things that I've been doing.
So following an urge when it comes is like that you're living your strategy, right? And finding peace, right?
Yeah, and I think that is actually what helped be part of the catalyst there. Like, when I started learning more about human design, because it gave me this permission slip to do what I actually wanted to do. And another thing that I love to do when I get that spark of inspiration is like grab my phone and voice note somebody. Like, it's always somebody different, but I'll just be like, oh my God, I need to tell you about this idea. And that's also part of the manifestor strategy. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog in the background, but he agrees effusively.
I can hear him, but I can also hear this one on the floor snoring really loudly. So, we'll just have to get over it. And can you hear that? I promise it's not me, just a small dog. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to share on this? Because I feel like we have covered this kind of shift in what's important. And I'm curious if there's any last ideas you want to share on that?
Well, something that just came to mind when we started talking about human design is that I also learned that my mum, my stepdad, and my younger brother, so the 3 people I lived with growing up, all have the same. So they are all manifesting generators with an emotional authority, every single one of them. And when I learned more about them, I started to learn more about myself and my learned responses, because obviously when you look at things like your charts, you're seeing what's meant to be. You're not seeing, you know, what you've sort of been conditioned to do. But starting to understand the people that I spent those formative years around was really helpful for me, because it gave me a lot of insight into what I could let go of now.
I really love that. And so does that mean that you're not an emotional authority? No, because you haven't.
No, I am an emotional authority.
So all of you are emotional authority.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so that means you were living with like 4 different emotional waves. And have you gone that deep? Do you know the difference between the 4 different types of emotional wave?
They all have the same.
And you?
I'm different.
Okay.
Of course I am. Of course.
Well, so in my household growing up, I'm the only emotional authority. And so everybody else is a sacral, or like my sister's a splenic. So everyone's different. Both me and my dad are Mani-gens, and then my brother's a generator. My stepmom's a projector. My sister's a projector. So it was kind of different and really easy to see everything. But the one piece that really stood out for me was this stop feeling your feelings. When you feel your feelings, everyone has to feel your feelings, Ebony, right? Like that kind of thing growing up was such a big deal of like, why does the whole house have to feel your feelings? Go away. Which there's also nothing wrong with, because actually, yes, I could, you know, it's also okay for me to feel my feelings, but I could probably take them somewhere else rather than filling the whole house with them. But it explains so much for me as to why it was hard for everybody else, and why they literally were feeling my feelings and my emotional wave.
So for me, I always felt like there was no space for my feelings. And so I would feel them deeply, but I would never express them. Like I would never get them out. And like, I mean, you know what happens when you go through years and years of just never expressing your emotions. It becomes a real challenge. And I think I just learned that behavior because it seemed like it would be easier. Like it would be an easier life if I didn't have these emotions that were different to all of theirs, because they were all the same 90% of the time.
Fascinating. I feel like we could do a whole other episode on that, and we might. So in the show notes, I'm going to put the links to all of the places that people can find you. Is there somewhere specific, or where do you hang out the most if people want to come and continue this conversation or find out more about you?
So if you're wanting to just hear more of my voice, then I do have a podcast, Your Biz, Your Rules, which is available in all the usual places. But the place I mostly hang out is Instagram, particularly Instagram stories. I mean, in this season of life, you'll mostly be seeing little pictures of my seeds growing and things like that, because I'm in like garden witch mode. But yeah, Instagram would be the place.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that everything's clickable and people can come and find you. And we are going to continue this conversation in Sacrosanct Secrets, and I think we can probably go a little deeper on, witchy modalities, and we might do all of the kind of personal development stuff, because you're as much of a geek about all of this stuff as I am. So that'll be fun.
Fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.